Welcome to Debate the News True Crime. I'm Adrienne Barker, and I'm joined by the fabulous and smooth sounding voice of Joseph Lobosco. Tonight's case is the murder of Jimmie J. Lee, a 20-year-old University of Mississippi student who vanished on a summer morning in Oxford in July of 2022. What makes this case so newsworthy isn't just the crime, it's actually the way the case unfolded. A no body prosecution, and that's no dash body, like there's no body. A single holdout juror, and a massive break in the case that came from pure chance more than 2 years later.
This episode includes discussions of violence and mature themes. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know needs support, help may be available via the Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. We approach this case with respect for the victim, Jimmie J. Lee. May he rest in peace.
Joseph and I are not attorneys, law enforcement officials, medical professionals, or forensic experts. We're literally podcast hosts. But we do research each case thoroughly. But this show, as you know, is recorded live on Chatter Social with minimal editing. Any factual errors are completely unintentional. Any individuals, businesses, or organizations that are mentioned that have not been convicted of a crime are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And the opinions of our guests live here on Chatter Social and our audience members are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of myself, Joseph, or Debate the News.
This is Debate the News True Crime. Let's dive into the case timeline. Summer 2022, Oxford, Mississippi. Jimmie J. Lee is a 20-year-old University of Mississippi student. In the early morning hours of Friday, July 8th, Jay leaves his apartment around dawn and doesn't come back. When family and friends can't reach him and he misses plans later that day, concern quickly escalates. At first, police treat Jay's disappearance as a missing persons case, but it doesn't stay that way for long.
Very early in the investigation, detectives focus on Jay's last known movements and communications. And they identify Sheldon Timothy Herrington Jr., a 22-year-old Ole Miss graduate, as someone that Jay had been in contact with around the time he disappeared. Prosecutors later argue Jay went to Herrington's apartment that morning and that Jay never left alive.
This case becomes notorious for several details, including Herrington's internet search history. Investigators claim that just minutes before Jay was at Herrington's apartment, Herrington searched, quote, "How long does it take to strangle someone? Gabby Petito," end quote. For reference, Gabby Petito was a 22-year-old travel influencer who was murdered by her boyfriend earlier that same year. The state later frames Herrington's internet search as intent and premeditation for the murder of Jay Lee.
The prosecution's theory is that Jay and Herrington were communicating overnight and that Jay came to Herrington's apartment, and then Jay's life essentially stops in a tight window afterwards. There's no verified contacts with his friends or his family. There's no social media and no phone activity that leads anywhere. And no signs of Jay ever again.
Within days, investigators find Jay's car, a Ford Fusion, abandoned at the Molly Bar Trails apartment complex in Oxford. It gets towed and processed. This is crucial. Jay's belongings are still inside the vehicle, but Jay is missing. Police view that as consistent with foul play, not a voluntary disappearance.
Surveillance becomes the next major pillar. Investigators say video captures Herrington in the area where Jay's car is left, and that he's seen leaving on foot, and then later getting a ride. Prosecutors eventually described the abandoned car as staging, dump the vehicle, create confusion, and that will buy you time.
And another headline detail. Investigators say Herrington bought duct tape at a Walmart the morning Jay vanished. At trial, that purchase is treated as a potential tools of concealment moment, something that looks innocent on its own, but very different if you believe a cover-up is happening.
Prosecutors also point to Harrington's movements later that day. They argue he traveled to Grenada, his hometown area, and he obtained items. He obtained like a shovel, a wheelbarrow, and that he used a box truck connected to his moving business. And the state's narrative is blunt. This wasn't yard work. This was a disposal of a body in progress.
2 weeks after Jay disappears, police arrest Herrington and charge him in Jay's death. At that point, there's no recovered body and no medically confirmed cause of death. But prosecutors argue the digital trail, surveillance, and behavior prove Jay is dead and Herrington killed him.
At early court hearings, investigators testified to the circumstantial chain, the search history, the Walmart purchase, Jay's car being abandoned, and, of course, Harrington's movements. They also introduce a cadaver dog evidence, alerts because the dog alerted in spaces associated with Harrington, and that would be to suggest a body had been present. A judge initially denies the bond.
Later in 2022, Herrington is released on bond under conditions. That decision becomes one of the most debated aftermath elements of this case. Jay's family is still searching, and the accused is out awaiting trial. Some see it as a fair application of innocent until proven guilty. Others see it as reckless and a serious homicide case with a still missing victim.
Next, Harrington is indicted for capital murder. Prosecutors prepare to prove a murder without a body, which is a rare and risky strategy. And the defense's core theme, it stays consistent. No body, no forensic cause of death, no crime scene with blood, or no DNA tying Harrington to a killing. The state's core theme is also consistent. Jay's life stops in the window tied to Harrington, and the evidence trail points in only one direction.
And pretrial litigation matters here. One big development, Harrington's attorney successfully moves to exclude some of the cadaver dog evidence from the first trial. That removes a gut punch piece of proof the prosecution wanted, and it hands the defense a cleaner narrative.
Ooh. The first trial goes forward in late 2024. Prosecutors lean hard into digital evidence. Okay, the strangulation search, messages and phone timing, surveillance, reminder of the duct tape purchase, the abandoned car, and Harrington's alleged efforts to conceal what happened. They argue Jay was killed and then erased. Car dumped, phone gone, body hidden. Boom.
And the defense drills holes in that theory. No body, no medical cause of death, and no direct forensic evidence. They argue the state is stacking assumptions, assuming Jay is dead, assuming Herrington killed him, and assuming the search equals intent, also assuming that the duct tape equals concealment. Their point, circumstantial doesn't always mean conclusive.
Ah, that's interesting. The jury deliberates and can't reach a unanimous verdict. The split is later reported as 11-1 for conviction, with the holdout juror refusing to convict without a body. The judge declares a mistrial, Harrington remains charged, and the state gears up for a second trial.
Then, in early 2025, there is a huge break in the case. Hunters in rural Mississippi discover human remains along with a necklace with the name Jay on it. The crime lab confirms the remains are that of Jay Lee. After more than 2 years, the body is finally found, and that discovery turns the entire case on its head.
But here's another newsworthy twist, Joseph. Even with the remains recovered, decomposition means the medical examiner cannot determine the exact cause of death. So the state gains undeniable proof of death, definitely, but they still can't medically confirm how he died, Joseph. And that keeps the fight about proof alive.
That is true, and prosecutors use this as an opportunity to reinforce charges tied to concealment. evidence tampering specifically, and they proceed towards a second trial. They now argue the discovery location and concealment details fit their original theory. Jay was killed in Oxford and hidden somewhere else.
But, with a big but, on December 1st of 2025, Herrington pleads guilty to second-degree murder and tampering with evidence, right as a second trial is about to get underway. And that's the legal cliffhanger ending. After years of denying guilt through the trial, he finally admits it was him.
And on December 2nd, 2025, Herrington is sentenced to a term that amounts to 40 years in prison, split between the murder sentence and the evidence tampering sentence, followed by post-release supervision. It's not life in prison, and that immediately becomes part of the public argument. Is this a fair punishment or a plea bargain discount for a brutal murder?
And in court, Jay's father delivers a devastating statement about the years of uncertainty and what it did to their family. The judge praises the investigation as unusually thorough and signals that, despite the winding path, missing person, a nobody trial, a mistrial, discovery, a plea, the system reached the right endpoint. Harrington offers no meaningful public explanation of his motive, and the case it ends legally, with a lot of people still furious about the why.
All right, Adrienne, this is a very interesting case. And there is one twist to it that we left out in the timeline. So let's talk about the why, because Herrington never stated publicly any clear motive for why he did this, yet he did admit guilt. So during the trial, it was revealed that Sheldon Timothy Herrington Jr. and Jimmie J. Lee were involved in a sexual relationship with each other. Jay was publicly open about his sexuality, but Herrington was not. At trial, the prosecution presented the theory that Herrington murdered Jay to cover up their secret sexual relationship. What do you guys think about that? Is that a plausible motive?
Joseph, I absolutely ask a lot of whys. I want that why answer, and I can imagine that everyone wants a why answer. So, looking at all of it laid out, I do think that his why was that he probably didn't want everyone to know. Harrington didn't want everyone to know his sexual preferences, and not that they're anybody's business either, but that is probably why. I think this is an interesting case because at the end, Harrington confessed. And so there's no longer a question of did he do it? We know that he did it. We don't know 100% the why and what led up to it.
I do believe that the motive was because he wanted to hide the fact that he was gay, whether it be from his family or just people in general. Like, he was afraid of that judgment. And I believe it was, I don't remember if it was his grandfather or his father was like a preacher of a church for so many years. And I think that played a part in the family that he came from as to why he did not want people to know that he was gay. But that is what I believe was the motive. He just did not want it to get out that he was gay.
Yeah, that's definitely a plausible explanation. It seems crazy, but it seems like that may have been it. Mariana, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Well, hello, everyone. I definitely don't think it's crazy to think that that's the reason. But what caught my attention is that the text messages that they were having before they met. I feel like Timothy felt pressure from Lee about what they were doing together. I feel like he probably threatened him like, if you don't treat me right, I'm just gonna blow it and tell everyone that we are actually together. And he felt frantic because of that reason that Debbie was saying. He came from a preacher family. He even had a podcast, I believe. Everyone who knew him thought that he was this wonderful guy. They were just amazing. And so he felt like the whole world was just going to collapse if people will know who he actually was. Because a lot of people have to hide their sexuality because it's taboo for many families. His family was probably one of those. That would have just like been a no. And he decided to kill the guy, get rid of it. So he didn't have to deal with it. And there was a moment where it felt like he was going to get away with it until they found him and he finally confessed to the crime.
He was from a prominent, wealthy family in the South. He was kind of a rich kid. And the two of them were not getting along. They had kind of a tumultuous back and forth relationship. They were blocking each other, and it didn't seem like this was just a normal, casual hookup. There seemed to be some emotions involved there. So yeah, it's possible that he just killed him because the guy said, well, I'm going to tell everyone about us, and he didn't like that. I mean, terrible decision because ultimately everyone found out about it anyway, and now he's in jail.
Oh, Taylor's hands up. Let's let the pharmacist speak.
My pharmacy owner, my wife's the pharmacist. I love to take credit for that. But anyway, Timothy Herrington is from my town. So it's a small world. You know, we know their family and all that. So I could go on and on about this, but it's just such a stupid decision. His grandfather is a very prominent bishop in the church, very wealthy. And I think Timothy didn't want this secret getting out. And his mom still, she's kind of like, oh, he's going to be protected in prison and all this. Like, it's just a terrible attitude, nose in the air, still doesn't think her son did it.
I think that he panicked. I'm not sure if he intended, like, purposely to kill him, because if you do that, then it's going to come out for sure. It's all going to come out. It's going to come out in court, you know. So if he's afraid of it coming out, I think that he just went into a panic rage and it just happened. It just happened accidentally. And then he tried to cover it up at first. And then I think he was just finally like, okay. I can't cover this up. It's over. I did it. That's my theory.
And it's possible that the fight they were having over text could have been reignited and they got into some type of physical altercation, an attack happened or an accident happened, and then he decided to cover it up.
I don't think it was intentional. I don't think he invited him over to actually do that. I do think that it was probably more of a crime of passion and in the moment. I don't think that it was intentional, and I do think that he wanted to cover it up.
If it was intentional, it wouldn't make sense if he was afraid for it to come out, you know, because when you grow up in a very prestigious family, you worry about your family finding out about this and that. So why would you intentionally do something, you know, and then it's going to go to court and then you're going to serve time. So if you don't want your family to find out, I really do think that it was just toxic and it just got heated and it's just a crime of passion for sure.
There is also the prosecution's assertion that it was premeditated with the search history of his phone. So he did search how long does it take to strangle someone, allegedly right before they met up. So that could have just been a coincidence, I guess, because Gabby Petito had died earlier that year. It was a big story, so maybe he was interested in true crime. But you could argue, I think, that maybe it was premeditated. If he did wind up strangling him, maybe he did that search to figure out how to do it.
I forgot about that part. However, I still don't think it was intentional. I think maybe he looked it up and maybe he had the idea, but I don't think that that was initially his intention. But he did have the knowledge of what he could do because he looked it up. But I still don't want to believe that that was the intention of having him over. I want to believe that it was a case of them just getting into a heated argument and that happening.
Or maybe he wanted to do something to him to scare him, but didn't want to take him all the way out. I forgot about that part too. Interesting.
It's definitely possible. Maybe he wanted to like scare him, but he wanted to make sure he didn't kill him.
He didn't kill him, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to strangle him a little bit. This is an interesting case.
I mean, we also hear about people that have these fetishes. Well, what's to say that, he wasn't looking up that part, the strangulation, because it was a fetish or a dream he had that he wanted to do with him.
True. What's that? What's it called?
ED,
Yeah. Yeah. Could be. Do you think, Taylor, that this was premeditated, or do you think that he was so scared of it coming out that he was trying to scare the guy? You better not say a word. And it was a crime of passion. What are your thoughts?
Well, from what I remember in the first trial, because we watched a lot of it, I know all this kind of went down over the course of a few hours. I think he definitely premeditated, and I think he did because he also Googled pre-workout, kind of like creatine or a protein shake. You could tell he worked out a little bit. It's like a pre-workout deal. Will that amp you up or jack you up? Pretty much like getting them all amped up to do this.
The first trial before they found the body was a no-body homicide, is what they call it. And they are notoriously difficult to convict on because you don't actually have a body. You can't prove, A, that the person's even dead, or B, how they actually died. If you were a juror on a case like this, do you think you'd be able to convict someone of murder without having a body?
If there was enough evidence to show that they did it, absolutely. And I know that they interviewed the jury afterwards, and there was only one person. And the only reason why they didn't say that he was guilty was because there was no body. But they did think he was guilty, except for the fact of the missing body. But I think if there's enough evidence there, then yes, I would be able to convict without a body.
So to me, it's risky without a body or a cause of death. I mean, so no autopsy, no definitive cause. I don't know. To me, I want to have a body. And unless the evidence is so stacked up that there's blood, like, blood in the car, blood somewhere where there's somewhere that they're showing signs of blood, but there was nothing that could be found. And so, except that the body was found and then his confession. So it would be a not guilty for me with no body.
Yeah, I get that. And I think that the first trial, it wasn't the strongest case, in my opinion. I didn't follow the whole trial, but just based on the research I've done, the defense put forth an argument that basically said it could have been another person that he met up with that could have done this. So I think without the body, without the cause of death, plus that type of a narrative, I can see why maybe that one juror did hold out. People were really upset that he got released on bond. The victim was still missing, and yet they let him out. Do you agree that a defendant should be let out on bond in a case like this?
I think it does depend on the case. I don't know. This is a tough one because they didn't have a body. They couldn't prove there was a murder. But at the same time, it was thought that, he was dead. So on this particular instance, I think that the bond was justifiable.
Honestly, I don't think they should allow him to get out in the bond. I think that even though there was no body, I think there was a lot of evidence to show that he was involved in his murder, his disappearance at the moment, right? Because they didn't find the body until later on. But there was a lot of videos, and he was the last person who saw him, right? So I think they should have hold him for a bit until they were completely sure, yeah, that he was not the one. Which, at the end, the truth always prevail.
In this case, I mean, let's just be honest that when you have a bond, it's definitely reckless, right? It's dangerous because you have risk of flight, you have tampering with more evidence, you could harm someone else. I mean, I think it erodes the public trust in the entire system. And so I think that could be a problem. On the other hand, he had ties to the community. He was an Ole Miss grad, no prior violent record, and he complied. Like, when you look at it, I think that even in these really ugly cases, the system should really be fair. So I think that the bond exists to prevent jailing the innocent, and the state should prove why it's needed, which they did, by the way. So I think that it's risky, but I think that it was right to do having a bond.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I think that you have to balance the risk of someone fleeing or committing another crime with their rights, because technically they are innocent until proven guilty. So I understand why they did release him on bond. At the same time, though, it was a no-body homicide, meaning, like, at the time, the body still wasn't found and they believed that he was dead. So if you release that person on bond, there is the possibility that if they were the murderer, they can go and further cover up evidence to prevent them from finding the body. That didn't happen in this case because they eventually found the body, but I can see that being a legitimate concern also from the other side of it.
We have a full stage here on Chatter Social. And if you're listening and you're like, who are these other voices? They sound awesome. Let me tell you, they are. They're real people. They're amazing. It's Chatter Social. You can find it on your Google Play Store or your Apple iPhone store. Just Google it, find it, get in the room. But I'm glad that we're taking a little bit of a break. Now let's get back to the question. Who's going to take the mic next?
Did you know that Lee had a Pomeranian and that he absolutely loved his dog, and the dog was alone in the house as he disappeared? And that just broke my heart to know that he was so attached to his dog, and now the dog is missing him.
But Mariana, thank you for saying that, because not just the fact that you and I love dogs, and many people in the room probably love animals and cats and all of that good stuff, but that you brought it up so that we can understand, because we never talk enough about the victim. But thank you, because you're right. And that is a character. That's a beautiful thing. And so knowing that with his heart and just watching videos, he just seems fabulous and just someone that, we would all love to have in the room with us. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, Mariana. I love you.
Love you too, darling. And you're right. When he was holding his dog in one of the videos and talking into the camera, you could just tell how close he was to his dog and how fabulous he was. Just fabulous. That's the word.
Yeah, and when he first initially went missing, that was one of the huge red flags to his friends and family. They're like, he wouldn't leave his dog alone like this. So that alerted them that something was definitely wrong. So, sentencing. Herrington was offered and accepted a plea deal that amounts to about 40 years behind bars, which is a long time. But do you think it's fair that he may be able to walk out of prison a free man one day?
Here's my take on this, is that 40 years, he's a young guy, right? I think he's like about 25 years old now. So 40 years is a lot. He could potentially walk free in his 50s or 60s. And they did. The prosecutors, I mean, they had the momentum going on, and they could have pushed for a retrial, and that could have delivered some full accountability, maybe more information. But there's one thing that I think that we all forget in these cases. And again, it's the victims and their families. The families' reaction was actually relief and not rage with the 40 years. And why does that matter? Because it matters to me, because they don't have to do it all over again, right? And we forget that. It's so easy to forget that. But if they wanted to have the case retried so that maybe he would serve life in prison, they'd have to go through the whole thing again, reliving the horror in court. And I think that a lot of the cases that are taking place, people are they just can't do it. It's very hard. And so I think this case, I think that the 40 years is good. It's a hefty chunk of life. And hopefully he comes out and he's changed or whatever it was that was taking place. So I think 4 years is enough.
I'm gonna push back on that. I think he should have gone life in prison. Like, not a chance to get out. He took a life, like, premeditated, you know? He Googled how to kill this person. He Googled how to kill him. It's not like, oh, it happened. No, he intended to kill him, to get rid of him. So, no, life in prison, in my opinion.
In my opinion, he never showed remorse. He had this smirk on his face. Evidently, rumor was that the father wanted him to take a plea deal the first time, and he would have gotten like maybe 10 years, gotten out in 7 or 8, and the mom told him not to. One jury was either confused on the verdict or she didn't believe in the death penalty. I think that was 12 jurors or 11, like all but one voted him guilty. One person didn't. So that's how close he was. And he took a plea deal, and hopefully he'll spend the rest of his life or the majority of it in prison.
Was there more evidence other than looking up how long it takes to take someone out by choking? We kind of talked about the many different reasons he may have looked that up. Was there any other evidence that I missed that he Googled?
He looked up how long to strangle somebody before they would die. I have to disagree with you, Mariana, because I
Me
don't
too.
think that it was premeditated. And again, we don't know because on some of the text messages, there was things that they did together that were, I guess it had never been done before. So the whole thing with the strangulation kind of borders. I really don't think it was premeditated. I'll have to disagree with you on that.
I still stand by premeditation because if you're trying to find out how to strangle someone, you are preparing for it. You are making your plan. I stand by how I feel about it, but I respect how you guys feel about it. Yeah.
I mean, we have the text messages, we have him purchasing duct tape that morning right within the disappearance window. We have video surveillance footage of him in the area of where Jay's car was left, him jogging away from that area. There's a bunch of pieces of circumstantial evidence that you could point to, but I think Adrienne's right. He admitted to it. We do see sometimes people will take a plea deal and yet still maintain that they didn't do it, but they take the plea deal because they don't want to risk getting more time. So
Right.
you could argue that is a possibility, but ultimately he did admit to doing it. So I'm going to go with, I think he's telling the truth.
Thank you. Thank you. And that gives me a little bit more. I'm leaning one way and like premeditation, and then I'm leaning another way and like he was just trying to scare the guy. He was going to tie him up and choke him out to scare the life out of him. You better not tell. And oops, I didn't mean to kill him. So I'm going back and forth with it.
I think during the first trial, they gave like a timeline, and it showed where he was caught on security camera, where his phone pinged. It caught him in one location, his phone ping, and then I forget how many miles up the road in Oxford it showed him like jogging through the apartment complex. And if you do the math, that's like collegiate level mile times. You'd have to be a top collegiate athlete that runs track to make those mile marks. So that right there was like, dude, nobody can run like a 4-minute mile for 10 miles. It was insane. Also, the dogs, they pinpoint like, okay, there's been a dead body here in the back of the U-Haul transport truck that he has. He was caught on camera loading the shovels and all that. It was just the facts. It didn't look good at all. I mean, we all thought he was guilty. There was a few people who were like, well, without a body, and usually deer season, it ends the last day in January. And last year, for some reason, they extended it by a day or two. And the hunters weren't in the woods hunting. This was like right off the gravel road where people go to dump deer guts. So they had killed a deer in an extended, like 1 or 2 days of deer season, and they happened to notice the body. So that's a God thing there.
Very interesting case.
No, but I'm really glad that this case was chosen because it's not always about doing the case that has the most people talking about it or the documentary just came out on Netflix or Hulu. It's about Jay Lee. It's about these cases where life is stolen, and we're here to share the story. I just hope the family, after so many years, is doing okay. And that's all I really have to add.
It's just a sad story. I mean, statewide, it caught a lot of attention. I wish it would have caught more national attention. The people who really stood up for Jay Lee, they stood 10 toes down. And I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I'll also say this, the Oxford Police Department, after he took the plea deal, I think the chief of police who I used to play church league softball with, good guy, he started to tear up for Jay Lee's family. And it was just sad.
When one comes from a powerful, prestigious family, there are a lot of expectations out of the children, right? Lots of, if you do this, if you do that, you will be disowned, things like that, right? We know that he's guilty, and we know that he probably didn't want the secret to get out because of his family. I think it's very important for people to understand, especially parents, people that decide to have children. You got to be very careful on how you raise your children and very careful on how much control you have over your children because that can cause a lot of mental health issues. Mental health plays a big, huge role. And I just think it's very unfortunate. I feel for the victim family and for the victim, of course.
We've found out since all this that his mom, she covered up for him a lot in high school. Like stories came out that he was in Visions, which is a dance and singing group, and they're really good. But anyway, he like shoved this dude. He did some online bullying and some other stuff. All these stories are coming out now. Now, I don't know, like nobody showed the pictures or like messages. I don't know for a matter of fact, but these stories are coming out. And Joseph, edit this out if you need to. But their original, obviously they couldn't give us details, but I mean, I know their friends and his who also helped with the case. And I was like, dude, what is Timothy like? He was like flying to Atlanta, like going on all these trips while he had an ankle monitor on. And I was like, dude, what is he show? I'd be panicking. Like I would be freaking out. And he just laughed. He was like, well, you're right. I can't give you details, but he's like, we're kind of in the same boat. I mean, he wouldn't tell these guys nothing. Like his own, it was like, I don't know if it was his mom, and they paid a lot of money. The granddad footed the bill for the first trial. And then other people, church members at the family's church, and, a lot of the church members got upset that he took the plea the second time around because, they funded, church members funded the trial the first time. The preacher got up there and said, this is my grandson. He's a member. And so they've lost a lot of members, which I thought was wrong from the get-go. When I heard that, he got up there and part of his sermon was, hey, can you contribute to paying for this? But the granddad has enough money. He could have paid for the trial 5 times over. But no remorse. I don't think there is any remorse, or there's probably regret, but I don't think there's a whole lot of remorse. I think the whole time he thought he was going to get away with it.
Very interesting case. Thank you. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Adrienne and
Yeah.
Taylor.
That was great. Great stuff. Thank you, Taylor, for sharing that information. Well, this case, it's so brutal, and it's not because of just about what happened. It's about what didn't happen for years. Again, no certainty, and a trial that came one juror short of a conviction. But Jay's family, they still had to endure years of limbo to get there. My heart goes out to them. However, the justice system did land somewhere concrete. Guilty plea, a long prison sentence, 40 years, maybe not long enough for all of us, but long, and accountability on paper.
Absolutely, Adrienne. Thank you to all of our listeners and our live audience for being a part of our Debate the News true crime community. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe to Debate the News True Crime on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Your support helps us continue these in-depth, behind-the-headline discussions. We'll be back with a new episode on Thursday. The podcast episodes drop at midnight Eastern Standard Time on all podcast platforms, and you can join us and participate in our live show recording every Thursday at 7 p.m. EST, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, only on Chatter Social. Download the Chatter Social app for free in the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store and join us for our next live show. Until then, stay safe and take care of yourselves and each other. This is Joseph Lobosco with Adrienne Barker signing off. Good night.